Hi, everyone. This is our last presentation for the day, and I couldn't think of a better way to finish off the second day of Summit before we go and drink too many beers at the Summit Bash, or other than inviting up Tom Crespi to the stage. And Tom is the definition of a wiki champion, and I've actually been begging him to speak at Summit for the past 3 times. So it's his 4th time here. He's a true Summit veteran, and I'll invite Tom to the stage so he can tell you his story about how to rock your wiki.
Thanks for hanging around today. It's been a long but a great day, hasn't it? And I know it's warm out there, so we're gonna keep moving. So this first slide is maybe the most obvious rock reference that one could come up with, but there are many throughout the presentation that, in a fun way, help build this presentation on adoption and how you can get what I would say massive adoption within a larger company. Just a quick question. How many of you are just starting out on the Confluence path, maybe into it a year or so? So quite a few of you. So this will hopefully be a great talk for takeaways for you, but also those of you who have been on it a while. Sometimes you know things get stuck, and you want to see how do I keep moving this forward, right? And you already have a tool with Confluence that, again, along with this, what the slide represents, it already hits all the right notes, but how do you get other people to get that and move forward? So sometimes the challenge may feel daunting. So you're on this cliff face, you already have some of the right tools, but how do I go up? How do I myself learn more about the tool so I can be a better evangelist or champion? And how do I help others? How do you help others find their edges to keep moving? So one way is you can follow the lead of others. There's others that have gone before you, and some of us have stories to tell and successes to share with you. I hope some of them you'll hear right now. There's a great book out there, if you haven't heard of Wiki Patterns by Stuart Mader, M-A-D-E-R. It's a wonderful, wonderful book that I use from the beginning, and it really helps you kind of grasp some ideas and techniques to move forward. You don't have to read it all through from the beginning. You can kind of just parse through it and work through it that way. And also, you all have your own intellect, and you can all have your own creativity to figure out some ways that might work. Just a little background on our company, Graybar. We're a Fortune 500 company founded over 140 years ago. So we have a lot of culture and tradition. Those 2 gentlemen are actually Gray and Barton. That was the name of their first company back when. And they were truly in the early days of electronic communication. The gentleman on the left, Elijah Gray, was an inventor. He had patents for the telegraph. He had patents for an early fax machine. And so they were early on a manufacturing company helping others that were creating this kind of equipment for communication. And in 1929, we became an employee-owned distribution company. We're still employee-owned today, and we have 7,500 employees, a couple hundred locations. And again, we're a distributor, and we don't manufacture anything today, but we distribute electrical, communications, and data networking products for all kinds of companies, big and small, but especially great for larger companies, large contractors, the government, the military, industry. So our wiki journey so far, we first explored the idea of wikis about 6 years ago, just trying to get our handle on what this might do. And we did find Confluence early on, and we knew that this was the right tool for us. We got the tool budgeted in 2008 and implemented it in 2009. And in fact, April 2009 was a month before my first visit to the summit. So maybe I'm like many of you out there, or some of you out there that raised your hands. It was kind of new, and you're trying to wrap your arms around it. We did some upgrades, so that was way back version 2.10, but it was only 3 years ago. And look how far Confluence has come, and you'll see soon how far we've come as well. Oops, sorry. Back in February, just a few months ago, we installed our first version of Zen. So we're not on 4.x yet of Confluence. We will be soon. You'll hear about that. But Zen's been another transformative thing for us. And you've heard many, I don't have many wild slides to tell you. Well, I do have some wild slides, I hope. But you've heard about Zen in 2 or 3 presentations this morning. So we've had, the first 2 years, we had great success with the wiki. So we had quadruple year-over-year growth from our first year to 2010, and then 2010 to 2011. And I'll show you using rocks again to show our little graph here. In our first year, we implemented our first wiki in IT in April. And that summer, we had our first non-IT wiki in our sales group. And so we had about 5 that first year. So it went slowly. The next year, we worked a little bit more, and we got some of that, the start of that real grassroots organic adoption. 2011 was our first year of the wiki, because we really went crazy, and we added 60 more. And we're now up to about 110. We're not going to keep the quadruple growth. That's not sustainable, because we've basically filled the company up, and we'll explain how we did that. But now we want to get it deeper and have more people use it. We have a lot of departments and locations using it, but we want to get deeper. So who is using the wiki? So I work in St. Louis, where our corporate offices are. So the most obvious first place to go was departments, because I could just walk over and start chatting it up. And it was all this kind of informal approach, which is different than what we normally do, because my job in change management is helping roll out new software using training and communication. And typically there's go-live dates and there are phased roll-ins. But we decided to do this totally differently, and I think it was the right approach for this type of a tool. So we started with departments, and it went well. And then we went to our districts. So of our 200 locations, we have 13 districts. And one guy in our Dallas district who kind of got it right away, one of the wiki champions that you want to find, those early adopters, he just went at it and started finding ways that it could help in their share files, but also information sharing. And that was the seed for other districts to say, hey, we want to do that. So that was the kernel there. And then projects. Projects in the past didn't really have a home. We would have different ways to send out emails, and they'd have attachments to PDFs and maybe a link to an FAQ or something like that. But to have a real project home where people could always reference back to it, they always knew where it was, and they could do the two-way communication, which is really important for change to occur, that was the cat's meow for us. And then finally, virtual teams. Virtual teams to support projects, virtual teams in districts, but separate from the district spaces. And we also have a special virtual team that we'll share with you, which is helping the wiki grow. And I'll share that with you in just a moment. So this is a big footprint, and that represents, I think in our quest for wiki adoption, we're up against the clutter of a lot of distractions employees have. Not only their workplace distractions, but there's a lot of other there's a lot of big enterprise software out there that's competing for employees' attention. So does anyone else have this issue of big enterprise software that is competing for attention when you're trying to get Confluence adopted? A lot of hands are going up. And so that's been an interesting challenge for us. And here's one mindset, I guess, that I think could help. So again, think about the rocks, think about the stones. We got little David there, who starts out with one wiki space in a corner of a big organization. So what you can do is think of those stones as your guerrilla marketing approaches. Your conversations with certain influential people that might be willing to take a chance on this new tool. Whoops, sorry. And just the whole idea of managed growth. We thought it would be not the right approach to send out an email to all 7,500 employees and say, we now have this wiki tool. Anybody wants one, we'll make a space for you. That would be very difficult to support. So that's why we've done it this managed growth. So as we built champions, we built other supporters that can support others. So choose your stones wisely. So how did we do it? So as you've seen from the rock music opening, the cliff face climbers, David's slingshot and stones, this presentation is centered around a rock theme. So as Rock Your Wiki continues, we have this Zen-like scene with stepstones, a little foreshadowing there maybe. And this will bring you the elements of the rest of the presentation. So first the foundation, and the little meeple guy that's going to kind of peek out of there, he represents a few people that we'll discuss in a few minutes. Your rock stars, find them. How can you nurture them? Mountains. So how do you climb those mountains of yourself trying to grasp it and help others grasp this tool and really utilize it for the benefit of your organization? And I guess to make the point is there's developers where this tool was maybe initially made for, but we have very little of that. 99% of our 110 wiki spaces are pure business people from all the departments that you can imagine thinking of: finance, purchasing, marketing, sales, logistics, HR. I keep pressing this thing. Rocking chair. So not really a rock, but it's rocking. And we'll explain how that connects to this conversation. The mountain goat, that's actually the Atlassian goat, and he helps make a great point. And finally, what's now and what's next for us? So let's start on foundation. For me, the foundation is built and made strong with management support. So if you are the manager that is supporting someone that is the wiki champion / evangelist, give them support. For me, it was my boss, Kirk, who supported this effort the whole way and has always been there for me when we had challenges, from getting it in the budget to getting it implemented to working through where we got to today and where we're going with this. You know, somebody to share challenges and successes, ask for advice, and again, give support. Another key management person was our VP of corporate accounts, who's now our VP of business development. He loves technology. He was a great person to take this on. He was our first non-IT wiki. And he's got about 5 or 6 now with all the different projects and other elements that he controls. And you know, an influencer like that is golden. So a takeaway for you is build the foundation for wiki success by connecting with key management personnel. They can assist and support your adoption efforts. So next, rock stars. So to me, rock stars are others who get it, who you really don't have to push. They embrace this without virtually any support at all, except give me more. What else can we do with it? When they need help, this must have an automatic mode in it. I don't think I'm pressing it. When they need help, try to give it to them. The previous speaker talked about listening and giving people time, and you know, usually the conversations or the answers would take 5 minutes, maybe a day or two if it was more difficult. But try to help keep them moving so they keep being supportive and help them move along with their needs for the wiki. One thing we formed to help keep these people together and keep them in conversations, we formed a Wiki Advisory Council, because this, again, was a grassroots effort. It's not, even though I work in corporate, I I sit in the virtual seats of the people in the field and try to be their advocate. So this is a way to be their advocate in moving this tool along. So we kicked the Wiki Advisory Council off a little over a year ago, and it's truly a cross-section of employees, and most are from the business. So I'm the only one from IT, but we have sales, marketing, operations, finance, and not only in corporate. We have someone in Seattle, someone in Boston, so we truly have this nice cross-section. And one of the perks for them is being in the know. So most people just see what the wiki looks like in the spaces that they have, but they get to hear about what's coming, what plans, and we even ask them, what do you think we should do next? And then you have instant buy-in instead of, okay, now corporate is doing this with the wiki. No, we can tell the true story that it came from the employees themselves. So we finally call out the WAC team because we can be wacky at times. And we have our own space, and the purpose of the team is threefold: to share our knowledge and experiences, to help champion wiki use across the organization, of course, and then also to gain consensus on plugins. Plugins to me are the kind of the secret sauce of how to make the wiki do some cool things that it above and beyond what it already does. And before I get to a slide on that, you might be wondering, well, how does this work? How often do we meet? In a way, we never meet, but in a way, we always meet, because we've never had a phone conversation. We've never had a meeting in person. All the interaction in an extreme dog fooding mode, all the interaction is via the wiki, and then a few emails to fill in the gaps. We do use blog posts to share news and stimulate conversation, and they've been very effective as well. And then I mentioned the plugin evaluation. And we have a plugin considerations table, which helps assess in a collaborative fashion, like it says, what plugins might be worth exploring. So I know you can't see this very well, but basically what you might expect that it might include. The name of the plugin and a link to more information, the features and purpose of the plugin, the cost, the potential use cases within our company, Graybar, and we have people vote by adding their initials, and then any comments. And the feedback, this is by far our most active page, because people are just so very interested in this. The feedback's been outstanding. And so as a result of this, maybe we have 15 plugins that we're evaluating at any one time. And Glyphy is one of 3 that's come up to the top and that we've recommended for implementation this year. And so we got initial approval to do that, so we're going to go forward with that. So a takeaway here is an advisory group made up of a cross-section of an organization's top wiki users can maintain adoption momentum, especially during the ramp-up phase. So, mountains. So how do you keep everyone climbing up this adoption mountain? How do you help them find their edges, if you will? And if you're the one person who is the champion or the evangelist, there's so much you can do yourself. It's incredible how you can scale the knowledge from one person to help a huge organization. And here's some of the things, some of which are obvious and some you may not have considered. Obviously, there's extensive documentation online that's always helpful, and you can find it on the site, and often by Googling as well. One you may not have considered is Twitter, which I used a lot in the early days. At Confluence, there's at Atlassian Guru. The product managers have Twitter accounts, and in 140 characters, you can really learn a lot, but also you can do some communication that way. And I did some of that with Matt when he was still in Sydney, before we'd ever met or ever talked. And it was very helpful. Atlassian Answers that was launched last year. That's a really cool tool. If you haven't taken advantage of that, check that out. The plugin developers and other service folks that support the ecosystem can be really, really valuable and be a source of great information. And then other users in your community. You can't be the Renaissance person. Well, maybe you can, but it's hard for one person to know it all. So, you know, learning from others and having ways for them to convey information. And one thing we do is we have a Welcome to the Graybar Wiki space where we have links to, we have a link to the standard tutorial, and that's the great, that Atlassian provides. And that's a great thing for us when we have someone that wants to learn or know about it. We say, do you have 5 minutes? Or maybe they're on the fence. Do you have 5 minutes? If you click this link, you'll get a quick tutorial on some of the basics of the wiki. We also have tips that are homegrown, tips that are in our own words that, and have examples that we've used. We have basic tips that cover basic things like how does the Office Connector work, and attachments, and how do you show attachments. And we do focus also on macros, because some people they like them, but how does that all work? And showing them where what I call the scroll icon is, how they can just use the macro browser, which, believe me, the macro browser was a wonderful thing that came, I forget when, maybe in 3 point something. But in 2.10, it wasn't there. So you had to just know them and start doing the curly brackets. And for business users, you know, that's not a friendly thing. So it's getting easier and easier as we go along. So I kind of mentioned this in the previous, but you get help yourself to learn yourself if you're going to be that champion and evangelist. And then also find ways to offer help to others. Making resources available means any links or any maybe a space that you can provide to them. Resources like other champions that can be out there and helping. And various ways to find a helping hand. Go on. So here's something kind of related to this challenge, which I love. This is someone named John in our sales group. He's a director of sales, one of our directors of sales. And he says, Confluence makes work fun while connecting my team in new ways. I like it. To me, this is adoption gold. If you have someone thinking software is fun, then you have a real hook that a lot of software doesn't have. A lot of software for collaboration, a lot of software for sharing information. So, and I've heard this more than once. So knowing that is kind of an edge that you have already. And so I would kind of soft pedal it if I was introducing to someone new, and you know, it does this and does that, and you know, some people think it's fun. So you can just kind of roll that in and let it see where it goes. But that's been really really helpful. This is another person in sales, and how many people are in sales out there? Anyone? Just one, so I won't offend too many people when I say this. So, although I don't think it's offensive, but for salespeople to embrace a tool of collaboration, any tool, any software tool, that just doesn't happen in my world. So, for me to see this gentleman, Greg, who, another director of sales out in our Richmond, Virginia district, he started with 3 wiki spaces, and I saw him go to 4, and I saw him go to his whole district, which is maybe a dozen. And so I had to ask him, like, Greg, what's going on here? Why do you like Confluence, or why are you using it for your sales team? And he gave me these 4 reasons, and let me explain what he was doing. He made a page with, which we made a template out of. It had a picture of the individual, a little profile that the person would write about themselves. They were told, I guess, to implement or to input their sales goals for the year, and then monthly we're told to update their progress for the year. So that's the second one, a platform for competitiveness. He said, Tom, salespeople are competitive, and this is great because now there are people that they didn't even know in other branches in other states around that area. They're now seeing how their peers are doing. But it also brought that sense of community because now they learn, you know, this person's a hockey fan and this one does yoga and this kind of thing. So that's kind of a cool element as well. He loved that it's easy to use. And also it speaks to the younger generation. Graybar, traditional company, promote from within. It's something that to new recruits, when they hear Graybar, this company with this long tradition, has a wiki, that's kind of a plus. So, rocking chair. I really like this one to convey something that I think we all need to do in a lot of different ways for whatever we're doing at work. But it's a time when we step back and ask questions. And sometimes it's hard to do that if you have a busy life at work, a busy life at home. So you got to find times where you can just think. So sometimes I do that when I'm riding my bike on the weekends for a few hours. Some people, and I do as well, in the shower. I mean, that's a quiet time. Anytime that you can get away and ask some questions to yourself. So one of those revelations in that moment is represented by this slide. And that was being a company like ours that is a large company, we're very proud of our training and our training programs. And I knew I'd be asked, hey, Tom, you know, the wiki's getting pretty big, and we have some all-employee wikis that are in the offing. Where's the training for this? And I thought about this as well, but I saw that we were growing wikis and having people use the tool, and no one said to me, of the users, where's the training? And so the message is that, and our strategy was to get a critical mass out there of spaces. And would training really be necessary? No, because up to 110 spaces, and what we're doing so far is, you know, other than the space owner and those that are creating pages, people are just getting links and being asked to review a page, maybe add a comment, or edit the page, or add an attachment. So that's 98% of employees. It's just a web page, in a way, and they can incrementally learn more about it. So we would have, on all of our new wiki spaces, we'd have a little link on the home page that said, new wiki user, click here to learn more, and they could learn more that way. And there's no doubt that if we want to move deeper and have more people actively using it and creating pages, we have to do more than what we're doing, but it hasn't been necessary so far. But we're thinking of how-to videos and other things that we could do to help, especially now that we're, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Hold on. But I was actually, so I had this thought process, and I was actually finally asked by a director in an operations group that question, because there was an all-employee wiki in the offing. And I gave him the explanation, and he was fine. And that same person now has another role as a VP of one of our new groups. And what did he ask for? He asked for a wiki space. So I think that holds. So takeaway, spend early efforts targeted to finding and nurturing new space owners versus concerns about mass training. We found that gaining critical mass of wiki spaces is more important than mass formal training efforts, at least in the early going. So the mountain goat, I don't know if you're familiar with the Atlassian goat. I've always loved this. I like cartoons. I love the nature of this one. And so I say, like the perky goat, Confluence has a unique character to it. Use this to your advantage. Now, this is the tricky bit. I have to see if I can make this work. So this was a rocking chair moment. So, well, let me play it, because the name was supposed to come out afterward. Let's see. Help! there we go. Thank you. I might have your help to get back to it. Oh, I'm all right. So you already saw from the slide what this is. Help again. Unfortunately, I'm not a Mac user at work. So here's the story on this one. So I was thinking at the beginning of the year, what else can we do to add some spice to the wiki and again, some guerrilla marketing. And I heard about, the Academy Awards were coming up and hear that on TV, and I was thinking Academy and Wiki and Academy and Academy Awards? Would there be something there? There was. Here's what we did. So we had to bring attention to the wiki in, and again, a fun way, but also an effective and efficient, real helpful way, is we came up with categories to shine a light on some of these things people were doing. And so you see some of them there. I mentioned the second last bullet earlier. I'll mention the last one, the first official employee wiki is coming soon. So these were just kind of cool, kind of a cool, sneaky way to bring some attention to the wiki. And so I did, instead of an Oscar, it's an Atlas Award. And thanks to Atlassian for allowing me to use their logo for that. And I thought just before I came out here to share, we also had a page where people could, instead of giving their speech, because we didn't have it was all through the wiki, we had a space where they can implement their comments. And so just a few, like for the best use of wiki comments was, they like us. They really like us. Colleen and Asa deserve all the credit because they make sure that each of those questions get answers, which is what makes them powerful. The best use of wiki tables. I'm proud of how much the government team has embraced the wiki and look forward to switching to Zen. Without our additional teams and users building their spaces, our wiki wouldn't be as vibrant, although I will take some credit for the Meet the Team table. And finally, one for First District to embrace the wiki. I'm proud to receive this award. Only through technological innovation do firms stay relevant in an ever-changing world. When I heard that Graybar had a wiki, I knew the seeds had been planted that would one day reap rewards on an ongoing basis, and so on and so forth. So it really struck a chord, and we're going to try to keep working on this and bring even more attention to this. And by the way, everyone who wins the Wikademy Award becomes a member of the Wikademy, so they'll be helping to judge these things in the years ahead. You're all here and you know this, but it's very valuable to come to Summit. As Matt mentioned, I've come to a few of these, and I really love it. It's a people connector, just like Confluence itself is a people connector. So you have all these things that you can take advantage of, and I think you know all of them. I won't have to run through them. And I know that the Summit Bash is right ahead, so we're closing down quickly. So now and next. So when I was making this presentation, I had no idea that Zen Foundation would have been mentioned like 100 times before it got to my presentation today. But I have a story of how I met Daryl the first summit, the first night before the first summit, before they even had before the opening of the sponsor pavilion. I had walked in and people were setting up, and Daryl was right there. I walked in the right, and he was setting up, and I was looking at this, and he was explaining the tool, and it was, right over my head because it was a month into it. It sounded interesting though, and we stayed connected, and the stars aligned, and we did finally implement it. So this is not Zen, of course, but this is our first all-employee wiki last September, where Graybar launched their sustainability initiative, and so the leaders of that group, they wanted to have use a wiki because we like the two-way communication part of it. And so, this is just simple with a couple of columns and use of the panels. But here's how it was transformed in literally maybe an hour and a half, the whole site. It looked like this. And you've seen this, but again, from this to this, 90 minutes. And people love this. People that were on the sidelines and said, I love how the wiki works, but it doesn't really represent the style that we want for our high-profile initiative or our customer-facing site. So now we got all sorts of them. We only launched this at the end of February, where we implemented Zen. These are 5 of them. You can see they're going all directions in the business, from pricing to construction, which has suppliers and customers in it, for our rollout communications and sales and PowerSmart, and it's very rapidly moving. So anybody who's on the sidelines is now asking for new spaces, and people that have existing spaces, they're also moving to it. So I think that Zen Foundation is a Confluence theme on steroids, and it's a Rock Your Wiki adoption accelerator. One other thing we have coming soon that we're really excited about is a wiki-powered interactive glossary. So I think it's common for many businesses and organizations that there's terms that people don't understand, and how do you get all those together? We actually had a tool that was updated by one person, so guess what? It never got updated. It was pretty stagnant. And so actually asked Daryl in Stepstone and said, is this possible? Can we build something? And they have Wikipedia, encyclopedia. Could we have like a dictionary or glossary? And of course he said, sure. And so this is now available, and we sponsored it into Zen Foundation, so other customers can take advantage of this element as well. So instead of add a page, it's add a term. And you type just like in Confluence, and the term names will come up. There's also an index, which we had before, so we just it was easy to be included, where people could just browse through the different terms that we have if they want to just discover. I'm really excited about the tag cloud, and you all know what tag clouds are probably, where we can bundle things together in a folksonomy fashion, where they're not in alphabetical order, they're connected in another way. So you barely see one called green there. It's the bottom left. And so an example use case is a sales rep is selling to a customer, and they're interested in buying products that we sell that'll help make them more green. And this sales rep isn't really, he's not really knowledgeable about green terms. So terms like sustainability or carbon footprint, he clicks green, here's all these terms. He can get an instant education and then make his call and talk intelligently about them. And by the way, we're going to launch this, we hope, in the next month. One last slide. So as our site's grown, we realized that to be able to more quickly take advantage of Confluence upgrades and plugin upgrades, and just in general to move faster, our IT organization is built around the critical business applications like SAP and some of the other ones we have. So when we had something to do with Confluence, it would be in a queue behind other things, and would take sometimes a long time. So my boss was supportive of looking for another option. And so a big provider of managed hosting for Atlassian products is Contigix. And we are in the process right now. In fact, I got an email this morning that says our servers are set up. So in maybe a week or so, we'll have our Confluence instance hosted by Contigix. And this is going to bring a number of great things for us. 24/7, 365 on-hand support. They're always there. And if I have something on a Sunday, which happened once a few months ago, I was stuck until Monday to have them restart the server or something. They're always going to be there. And they're handled by people that are experienced with the product and work with it every day with, I think, thousands of customers. And also they follow Atlassian's recommendations for large Confluence implementations. So we have a dual server setup with them, dedicated resources, and monitoring. So a lot of great things and exciting things happening for us that we hope can move us into the future. A lot of the images were from Flickr, and so thanks to all those people who either had Creative Commons licensing or or gave me their direct approval. And I thank you very much. Thanks for staying. And please, I'll be available afterward. Thank you.